This is Lisa from Mobile Tech Review, and today we're going to look at Nokia's first fabulous phablet. This is the Lumia 1520, a 6-inch Windows 8 smartphone. Available in 4 colors. You can see we have red, easy to customize and stylize with. This one is glossy, the others are matte finish. It's available in matte yellow, matte white, and matte black, and in the United States it's exclusive to AT&T, and we're going to look at it now. So here it is, we're in the days of living large, aren't we? Look how big this phone looks in my rather large hands. This is a 6-inch full HD smartphone, the first phablet for Windows Phone 8, and it's a pretty exciting piece. Now, why is it exciting? It's not just that it's huge. Huge has its limitations. If you watch my HTC One Max review, I was saying sometimes a phone seems like it might just be getting too big. And speaking of that, Max is 5.9 inches. Let's just compare them right next to each other. They're both very large phones. They both weigh over 7 ounces. Definitely bigger than the Samsung Galaxy Note 3, which we'll compare right now for you too. And here it is next to the Note 3 itself, quite a big phone, not as big a display as the Nokia, but still you get the idea. I think the Note 3 still reaches about the biggest size you can get and still call a device handleable, but that's always up to you and the size of your hands and what you want to do with the phone. Alright, so what makes it so special then, if just being huge isn't enough anymore? It has a lot of neat things inside that we haven't seen in a Windows phone before. So we're not just upping the screen size like the HTC One did. We have all sorts of internal improvements. This is the first quad-core Snapdragon 800. Windows 8 smartphone, for example, has Wi-Fi 802.11ac as well. So we're seeing the same high-end specs on this that we would see on a top Android phone. It used to be Windows Phone was always almost a generation behind in specs with Android, and that was somewhat okay because Windows Phone is highly optimized and doesn't really need so much processing power, but still people are specs conscious, and it's kind of nice to say, hey, for my $199 on contract, I'm getting the same thing I could get with an LG G2 or a Samsung Galaxy Note 3 in terms of specs. By the way, AT&T is running a special right now with the introduction of the phone for $99 on contract. It's $540 to $584 if you're going without a contract renewal with this. Depends on your AT&T store as what the pricing will be. So relatively speaking, about the same as some of the top Android phones. A lot cheaper at retail than the Galaxy Note 3 right now. So let's dig a little bit deeper here. Full HD IPS display, absolutely gorgeous. Nokia always has lovely displays, wide viewing angles, very bright, super touch sensitive. You can use this with gloves, for example. Gorilla Glass 2 on the front. Nokia is kind of beveling to the glass there, so it looks distinctly like a Nokia phone, doesn't it? And it's very attractive. You can see the good viewing angles there. And something else that I like is Windows Phone 8 makes good use of the screen real estate. Full HD, that's another thing that's new for Windows Phone 8. Before, we've seen only 720p devices. And you can see we got more live tiles. Now, they're not messing up the UI in the process. That's something I like. The tiles are actually the same size it would be on something like the Nokia Lumia 1020, but since you've got more space, we can fit in more rows of tiles. Starts to look a little bit sort of like a Windows 8 tablet or Ultrabook, doesn't it? In a way, you start to feel, well, I can be more productive with this right away. Black levels are good on the display. It uses Nokia's clear black technology. They never quite tell us what that means, but it's got nice deep blacks rather than having to be AMOLED. Colors obviously are vivid and pop very nicely. And the overall design of the phone is just, well, quite attractive. Distinctly Lumia, like I said, and this is the only color that is glossy, so for those of you who don't like gloss, keep that in mind. This is a kind of slippery phone, especially because it's big and it's over 7 ounces, like I said, 206 grams. So, yeah, that's the only drawback. I think red looks great, but the only drawback is it's even more slippery. If you get the matte yellow, matte white, matte black, they'll be easier to hold on to, and they might not call as much attention to themselves. Whether you like that or not, it's up to you. Right here we have our Carl Zeiss lens and dual LED flash on the back and a 20 megapixel camera. The lens is 2.4, so that's pretty fast. Not the fastest we've seen on a phone, but it handles low light particularly nicely, as you'd expect from Nokia. And the sensor size is 1 to 2.5 inch, so it's not as big as the sensor on the Lumia 1020, which I think is going to stick around for a long time as Nokia's super duper flagship. But you're talking 41 megapixel versus 20 megapixel. You get the idea of the difference. Still, 20 megapixels right here, wow, that beats most phones. And we'll talk about the camera a bit more later. On the side here, You can see that we have two little doors with the little paperclip pokey tool kind of thing required. One of these is your nano SIM card slot. Nokia has been using nano SIMs, the same as the iPhone. Very, very teeny, almost ironic in a device this big, but it's going to be a nano SIM for this. And yay, we have a micro SD card slot compatible with SDXC high capacity cards. So that's good. It used to be with Windows Phone, you really didn't see much in the way of expandable storage. You do get that here. And that's a good thing because our friends at AT&T decided to make two changes from the international version. 16 gigs of internal storage versus 32. So you want a place you can save all those great photos and videos that you shoot and all of your media files. Programs you'll still install on internal storage, but that gives you enough breathing room. And they got rid of the Qi wireless charging, the folks at AT&T. Real bummer there. I love Qi wireless charging, and that's because AT&T decided to get in bed with the PMA, and that's the Power Matters Alliance. And just because you decide that you like one wireless charging standard over another, I don't see why they had to have Nokia completely whack it, but they did. So you're going to actually have to buy an accessory wireless charging back PMA standard instead of the more common Qi if you want to do wireless charging with this. I suspect nobody's going to use wireless charging here in the US as a result with this phone. What a shame. Speaker is down here. Micro USB port here for copying stuff to and from your phone. And on the side, the usual lovely ceramic style buttons. We have our volume controls right here. We have our power wake button, and we have a dedicated camera button, standard feature for Windows Phone. Up top is our headphone jack. It's a pretty slim phone overall. Nokia's like that kind of chunky design, but this one has a nice slim look to it. Granted, it's relative to the width and height, so it's going to look a little slimmer with something this big. On the front here, we have 1.2 megapixel camera for video chat. It can shoot video, it can take photos. f2.4 aperture also, so pretty wide aperture for a front-facing camera. It's certainly adequate for Skype, a product that Microsoft now owns and runs just fine on Windows Phone. Teeny bit of AT&T branding up here, and the usual home, search, and back buttons that we have for Windows Phone. The phone has 2 gigs of RAM, again Wi-Fi 802.11 AC dual band, Bluetooth 4.0, and NFC as well. So quite a full-featured phone if you're looking for a phablet, and again, pretty reasonable price, especially at introductory $99 price tag, and even off-contract, not such a bad price. This is polycarbonate, your typical Nokia kind of finish. And as to the phone size, I leave that to you. I think this is going to be for people who kind of want a tablet first and a phone second. Obviously, this is 6 inches. Think of all the 7-inch tablets on the market. You're almost there in terms of size, which can be wildly empowering or it can be intimidating depending on who you are. All your standard Windows Phone stuff is going to be here. You've got your great contacts that integrate social networking, built-in Xbox Live game integration, of course MS Office. This is the baby version of MS Office. You don't get all the full features that you would on a Ultrabook, a laptop, you get the idea, but it's certainly good enough to do basic editing of MS Office files. Full email client on board, obviously supports Exchange pretty nicely, supports Google Mail as IMAP Idle, and you can sync your calendars and your contacts to Google using CalDave and CardDave as well. Nokia and AT&T bundle some stuff on here, and if you don't want it, the nice thing about Windows Phone is you can just get rid of it. No, I don't mean just get rid of the live tile, like say I don't want Hulu Plus, I can get rid of that live tile. You can just uninstall anything that you want. Just swipe to here and you can see all the stuff that's installed from AT&T. I don't want AT&T radio, so I'm going to press and hold and just choose uninstall. Bye-bye. Don't you love that? Don't you wish every phone would let you just whack the carrier bloatware just like that? So for those of you who are not familiar with Windows Phone 8, this is how you see all your applications listed alphabetically. So it's not just the ones that are live tiles. Now, the idea with live tiles is they should be updating, and like my weather is updating. My friends switch their pictures every once in a while. It tells me how many apps in the App Store I need to update, how many text messages I have, how many Gmail messages, how many email messages. As you can see, the screen is very, very sensitive. High sensitivity is turned on right now, and that works with gloves. For everyday use, you might want to turn that off. One of the neater things they bundled is Zinio. Zinio is actually available for Windows Phone. Now, Zinio on a 4-inch screen is kind of like a punishing experience, so we're going to show you right now that it's not so bad once you go up to 6 inches. Where's my magazine? I want my magazine. So here we've got Automobile Magazine, which just happens to color coordinate perfectly with the phone for this month's issue. And you can use it in portrait or in landscape modes, and you can pinch and you can zoom, because obviously some text is going to be small. And this has reading mode as well, which flows everything into text that you can see, but it looks pretty darn gorgeous. And let's make our way to an article so we can actually see. Like, here's some text. And it actually is pretty readable. If you just want to stay in the pretty layout, you can do that. Or you can switch over to flowing layout. So it's actually something that I find pretty tolerable and enjoyable for a change on a phone. Normally I would never use Zinio on a phone because page layout's the gorgeous thing you want to see. Page layout is not so great on teeny screens. Windows Phone has a really good built-in keyboard that really could rival the iPhones for some of the most responsive and easy to use keyboards. And you can see here it's certainly living large and pretty easy to use. You still have to hit the number button to switch between letters and numbers, but we're going to take a look at IE Mobile, which is built in here. You also get DirectX 11 Mobile built in for gaming, which is pretty neat too. And we're loading that over AT&T's LTE 4G network. So you can see that you actually get a livable amount of space here. That's the whole idea with the phablet. I don't need to zoom in to read any of that stuff. Lays out fine. And this is the desktop site, so quite nice. Supports HTML video playback, HTML5 that is. And we'll check out our video review of the Nokia Lumia 2520, the 10-inch Windows RT tablet that came out on the same day as this phone. Speakers are not that loud. For something this big, I'd like something a little bit louder. We're at 20 of 30 for our volume level right now.
This is Lisa from Mobile
That's not
Tech
too
Review.
bad.
Today we're going to look at the Nokia Lumia 2520. Yes, it's a Lumia. No, it's not a phone. Obviously, this is their first 10.1-inch tablet running Windows 8.1.
There's a built-in video player handling that. It does a nice job. And for those of you who want to do something more than just watch YouTube videos, by the way, you know, there's no YouTube player on this from Google. They keep whacking the YouTube players, but still, MetroTube is a great third-party YouTube player, or you can just use the web browser to go there. But for those of you who want some more excitement besides that, obviously Hulu Plus is available. There's also Netflix. Now, Xbox Live for the music and videos, oddly with Windows Phone 7 you could rent and buy movies, and it's gone for Windows Phone 8. Microsoft said they're bringing it back, but they've been saying that for a while. I think they should just actually get to the task and make those available now. You can sideload your own content. We put a bunch of videos on here. That's not a problem. You can put them on a storage card. Like I said, you don't have to clutter up internal memory. Our dialer, here it is. It's bigger than a jitterbug. Yes, it is. This is about as big as you're going to get for dialing on a phone. Very sparse, minimalistic kind of thing. You do have access to your contacts, your call history, all that kind of thing. You can even search in your call history while you're in the dialer. But call quality has been very good on this. Nokia does an excellent job with the voice, and they have great microphone technology. And despite the fact that it's large and you might look a little bit funny holding this big thing to your head, voice quality is good. And the fact that the earpiece and probably will drop the microphone's not very close to your mouth if you're holding it to your head has not been a problem so far. So actually a good voice phone. Clearly you can use a wired headset or a Bluetooth headset. That might be preferable for those of you who are a little bit shy of holding up a big board to your head. Those of you who own an Xbox or you've used the Zune or previous Windows Phone or even Windows 8 will recognize the kind of treatment that we get here. This is the music player right now. Very nice. And you also get Nokia Music Player, Nokia Mix Radio, which is some free streaming playlists that are pretty good. But we're going to check out a tune. So this is what it looks like. Very nice presentation. For a mono speaker, not too bad sounding either. And video is obviously particularly great on a screen this huge. So how about the camera, right? 20 megapixel camera, pretty exciting. Out of the box, this had Nokia ProCam, and those of you who are familiar with the Nokia Lumia 1020 know that that's Nokia as well. Fancy dancy camera application. That's getting replaced by something called Nokia Camera. When you do updates in the Windows Store, you'll get it. And as they warn you, don't worry, you're not going to lose features this time. It's going to have everything it did before, but it adds a couple of neat things. Some of them requiring the Nokia Black firmware that's on here. You can shoot in DNG format. That's digital raw format. So pretty fancy stuff. Also like the Lumia 1020, you can shoot by default taking a 5 and a 19 megapixel companion image. So 5 megapixel handy for sharing. You don't want something absolutely huge if you're mailing or social networking. The 19 megapixel for having the full resolution, and you can do things like crop without having lossy zoom kind of going on. Rather than using digital zoom on it, you can just crop to an image and not lose anything. So that's a very nice feature to have. And let's take a look at the camera. Seriously large viewfinder, and you can use this in portrait mode too, and these will just kind of do a nice little graceful curl over it. And you can ignore all these settings if you want to, or you can go to town playing with them. So say I don't think that the white balance is good right now, although actually it pretty well is. They all use a circular interface, so I can choose between them, and there's labels so it tells you what they are, so you can figure it out. But in this case, it's actually doing a good job. You can control your flash, on, off, auto, your ISO, your shutter speed. They got some crazy settings here. You can go to quarter second. You can actually, it's just great. Wow, 4 seconds. This is like having a real camera. So the settings here are pretty impressive. Brightness control, you get the idea. And then when you're done, tap to focus wherever you want, take a picture. Now the one thing about this is that it's just like the Lumia 1020 in the fact that it does not capture things very quickly. I would love to see them come out with an update that lets it capture and save those photos faster. If you want to switch to video mode, you can shoot 1080p video. Tap there to see all of your settings. Audio on and off, white balance, where you're focusing to. That's pretty neat to have for video. You can set it to infinity, manual, auto. We're going to leave it at manual because we know best where we want it to focus. Just tap to focus, and it's that easy, and you can start recording video. Makes a little sound. You get a usual timer over here. You get the idea. And then there are more settings. You can switch between which camera you're using. We've got bracketing, we've got a timer. Lots of camera settings here, very nice stuff. And you can also use Nokia lenses, the most interesting of which, that again requires the Nokia black firmware on this, and the Nokia 1020 is the refocus one. So you say you've got a picture and there's a lot of grass over here, and then there's somebody in the distance maybe hitting a baseball or something like that. You can tap and tell it which part of the picture should be in focus. It's kind of fun, creative stuff. And then there's Cinematograph. They've got their Storyteller, which uses time and location to create a photo montage of stuff. All very nice. If you're into photography, definitely a nice product to use. You also get Nokia Here Maps, which is an excellent mapping solution. You can see we've turned on various kinds of POIs over here in our places, and we can get further details on them as well. You get transit directions, you get driving directions. It's a very nice solution, and you can actually download maps for offline use. So if you don't want to use your data connection to download giant honking maps when you're on the road, you can pre-download them to your device as well. Good job from Nokia with Here Maps. And in terms of the third-party app store, it's improving. You know, it's still not up there, certainly with iOS or even Android, but you can see that a lot of the popular things are here. We got the Weather Channel, we got Hulu Plus, we have Netflix. There's actually Instagram now. Well, fine, and there's WhatsApp. So I think that there's plenty enough software here, and that's downloadable from the store to keep most people entertained. And certainly, there's a nice selection of games too. Though, interestingly, Microsoft goes to the beat of their own drum there. You'll see a lot of Xbox-related games, but you won't see some of the really top games that are popular on the other platforms right now. No, that's not always true. Like Asphalt 8 is really hot right now, and you'll find it on the phone too. Speaking of games, let's check out games and see how it plays. Given the super fast CPU on this quad-core Snapdragon 800 CPU on here with Adreno 330 graphics, this is the most powerful Windows phone on the market, so it should be more than up to handling any of these games. Now let's check out Mass Effect Infiltrator and see how that plays. And like many games and even some apps on the Windows Store, this is a try before you buy, so you can give the game a try and see if it's good or if it stinks.
Select your target. Align your radius to the target.
Game plays well. It looks great, certainly. Go, Geth, go. If you're into gaming, the giant screen, the fast CPU, and graphics chip in this are really going to be a great choice. So that's Mass Effect Infiltrator on the Nokia Lumia 1520. So how about battery life? That's another good thing about phablets. They're big things and they have room for big batteries. Granted, they're driving a bigger display, but generally the CPU and the resolution can be just as much of a power drain, and obviously LTE as well, and your fast Wi-Fi connection. Then we have 3,400 milliamp battery sealed inside. Clearly there's no way to take this guy apart. And Nokia has some pretty bold claims for battery life. 24 hours of 3G talk time, 95 hours of music playback time, 10.8 hours of video playback time, and 11 hours of Wi-Fi network web browsing. So far, I can tell you, I've just found it hard to kill this. I've been using it like crazy, taking pictures, shooting videos, playing games, using it for productivity, and it's gone on for 2 days now before I had to plug it in. In terms of actual screen on time, I think Nokia is pretty much on target there. If you're using auto brightness and not driving it at mega brightness, which you don't really need to because it is a bright display, you should really be able to get, I think, 10 to 11 hours of screen on time with this. Now, obviously, if you're using something like the GPS, if you're playing games the whole time or streaming HD video, you will shorten your battery life. But in a mix of average use that includes calls, email, web browsing, playing some music, all those things tossed in with some HD video playback and streaming, you should be able to get 10 hours of screen on time, or a little bit more. Very good. When the phone is sleeping, it actually can show you status, things like your email and your text messages and the time. And Motorola didn't think of it first. We got this tap to wake it up, so you can double tap it to wake it up, but not unlock it. You still have to slide to unlock it yourself. Pixel density is very high, 368 ppi. This is a very sharp display. Certainly lovely. And that gets to who's this phone for, and why am I excited by it? Well, like I said, there's a lot of things that are significant jumps for Windows Phone 8 here. It's not just about the screen size. I still think 6 inches is kind of on the large size for me, maybe. But first Snapdragon 800 quad-core, first full HD 1080p smartphone here. It's got all the specs to compete with all the other big boys. So it's a pretty exciting product. If you're into Windows Phone, this is the only one that has these kind of specs right now. I'm sure in the months to come we'll see more, and with smaller screen sizes for those of you who say 6 inches is just too much for me. Oh, and don't forget that 20 megapixel camera too, which certainly is above the fray. Not going to beat the Nokia Lumia 1020, but otherwise, yes, one of the best cameras on the market. So that's the Nokia Lumia 1520. It's available now, again, exclusive to AT&T in the United States. Overseas, it'll be available with several different carriers. For a first Windows 8 phablet or a supersized phone, it's definitely an exciting piece. I'm Lisa from Mobile Tech Review. Be sure to visit our website for the full review, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel.